December 14th, 2023. Looks like we have a quorum present. I'm doing this remotely, so bear with me while I have to toggle back and forth between the Zoom camera and the agenda. But the first item on the agenda would be to consider the minutes of the November 9th meeting of the Renaissance Zone Authority. What are your wishes? Changes, corrections, amendments?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now we will get on to the regular agenda. And we don't have a whole lot on the regular agenda, do we?
Nothing.
Nothing. So we go right to other business, right? Daniel, I'm not skipping over anything, am I? Daniel's back in the audience, I'm sure. But he needs to come up to the podium anyway. Item 2 on the other business would be an update on the Renaissance Zone renewal, which you're all aware of what happened, but Daniel's going to give us a synopsis anyway. Take it away, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair, authority members. So I can give you a little background on what happened. So the Burleigh County Commission did grant 1 year of support for a renewal of the Renaissance Zone program on their December 4th, 2023 meeting. So it basically is honoring your request. So that was what you had asked for in November. And then the City Commission did draft and sign a letter of intent to meet the conditions that the county had previously stated before their full support could be granted in a year. So everything's kind of moving along according to what we had discussed last month. I did, based on that approval on December 4th and the letter that was given to me the 2 days later from the County Commission, kind of documenting that support, I did submit a package to the Department of Commerce with a letter requesting renewal and the documentation of all the support and the development plan, which is our terms, the same one that was adopted in 2022. And so all that's been submitted, and we expect to hear back fairly soon on a formal response from the Department of Commerce. So one of the things that we're bringing to you today, and of course there's a lot of work that's on our menu here. We don't have to do it all today, but just to think in terms of meeting these obligations that have been set, and how you would like to guide staff or have some open discussion about how to do that. So that's the goal of today's meeting, or anything else you'd like to discuss.
So, Daniel, for the edification of everybody that is watching at home or wherever they're watching and does not have a copy of the letter of intent, can you just briefly summarize what the items were that the Renaissance Zone asked and the County Commission agreed?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. I've got a copy right in front of me here. So the first item would be that the City Commission would appoint a member of the Burleigh County Commission to the Renaissance Zone Authority, and that would happen immediately, or essentially this month. The commission meets on December 26th, and so that's when an appointment would be made. The typical process is the mayor recommends an appointment to the full City Commission, and then they make those appointments. There are 2 open seats on the Renaissance Zone Authority, and so one of them they have essentially obligated to one of the county commissioners. So that would happen this month. Then after that, or I should say you would initiate a public process to amend a section of the Code of Ordinances, or I suppose we would probably bring that to you first, but it would be the City Commission obviously making that approval. And that would allow other entities to appoint members to the Renaissance Zone Authority. Currently in ordinance, only the City Commission has that authority. That would be number 2. And number 3, well, I should say with number 2, the way the letter of intent is written, that would be offered to the other political subdivisions. We know the county wishes to do that. We don't yet know what the wishes of the school or the parks are. So schools or the parks are. So we would approach them with that offer. The third item was to initiate a public process to amend the development plan, and this would be to require future amendments of that development plan to have a vote from the Burleigh County Commission, the school board, and the Parks and Recreation Board. And then finally, the letter states that a public process would be made to initiate to amend a development plan to limit the value of a Renaissance Zone property tax exemption such that the property owners continue to pay taxes on the base value of the property at the time of initial project approval. This was discussed last month, and I believe this board was open to that and obviously communicated that to the city commission, so we would make those changes.
Okay, thanks for the summary, Daniel, and I'll open it up for questions. But quick question from myself. Have you had any feedback or early indication from the county on who, when, what appointment they might make? Anything?
So that's a very good question, Chair Christensen. I will say that publicly, Commissioner Munson has stated an openness to that. Beyond stating that, it's the city of Bismarck's mayor's really his ability to make that recommendation. So I won't speak on behalf of that.
Does the Renaissance Zone Authority have any veto power over that? No, never mind. All right, let's open it up for questions from the authority of Daniel on the process and the three items, if there are questions, and what direction we'd like to give Daniel and Ben and staff as we move forward. Questions? Nancy?
Yes, Daniel, when I look at the steps now that we have to go through for the amending the code of ordinances, that's pretty easy. We approve language and we send it up to the commission, and there's a first reading, and then at the next meeting there's a public hearing and adoption. Then for the development plan, is it the same set of steps or is it a little more streamlined?
So Chair, Commissioner Guy, it's a little more streamlined, although fairly similar. So we do hold public hearings on the development plan updates. In the past, the public hearings have actually been held at this table, and then the city commission has approved those development plan changes. So I would anticipate the same process, although you may wish to just bundle it all together and then do them at the same time and bring it to the city commission for one approval, if that's what you'd like to do.
If we did that, let me jump in real quick. What would the start to finish time frame be, Daniel, do you think?
So the procedural requirements are a little longer for the update to the ordinance, but really, it could be done in 2 to 3 months, really. We would have, as Commissioner Guy, or I should say Authority Member Guy has mentioned, there would be 2 readings at the City Commission table, and one of them being in the public hearing. But it could be done in a matter of 2 or 3 months. Okay,
thanks for that. Nancy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt if you have more.
That's okay. So for the changes to the development plan, is there an ordinance requirement that this body do the public hearing, or could we bump that up to the city commission to be done at that level instead?
Chair, Authority Member Guy, there is no ordinance requirement that it be held at this table. In fact, updates to the development plan, I don't believe it's stated anywhere legally that they require a public hearing. We always have done that because it is an important component of the program, and I would recommend continuing that, but it could be done at the city commission level.
Okay, so we could approve the language and bump it up there, and then they can, so would that also then be a first reading and a public hearing? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that begs another question, if I may jump in. When does the 1-year clock start ticking? Do we know?
So, Chair Christensen, the 1 year would be from, I believe, from December 4th. Well, I'm sorry. So the way their letter is written, it states that they would approve a 1-year extension of the City of Bismarck Renaissance Zone. So. And I'm just thinking off the cuff here, so correct me if you feel otherwise. My opinion would be that would start when the program is renewed, and which would be when the Department of Commerce issues the memorandum of understanding to do that. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, follow-up question then, are we able to entertain, to do business in the interim while we're waiting for Department of Commerce, City Commission, et cetera? I mean, are we able to accept applications, act on them, approve them, deny them?
Chair Christensen, I don't believe so. I think we would need to wait until the renewal occurs. And that question comes up to me, and online we don't have our application online right now for that reason, and we've we do have people asking, and I've told them to wait until the memorandum of understanding occurs.
Okay, so if that's the case, and I think that makes sense, and I would agree with you, then we may want to consider, to Nancy's question, call it fast tracking. And I mean, historically, we will hold public hearings because that's part of what we do. But if the city commission can do it in one fell swoop, I would be in favor of that. What do the others think?
Well, so that was my last question was, so we could accomplish all three of these bullet points, 2, 3, and 4 in this letter all at one time. And so that would be a good way to make it happen as fast as possible.
Could we accomplish it today?
I would recommend that we hold off until the county has named their person, just so that that's not a reason for the county to have another issue.
Okay. Joel?
That'd be my thought as well. I mean, there's a reason the county has requested to be a member of this board, and the livelihood of this program continuing seemingly depends on the cooperation between this board, the county, and the city. It just seems silly to start making all the changes without them being here, despite being a bit more timely on being able to make those changes.
Oh, that makes sense. Anybody else?
Follow up on kind of related topics, but just going through my day job is program management. So throw out all assumptions. What ordinances need to change? I looked through the ordinances that we had been provided a while back. I don't see anything related to how many board members.
So Chair Christensen, authority member Fink. So the only ordinance that I'm aware of, and it's really just one word within the ordinance, and that is in section 7-08-01, and it's in the fiscal procedures section of the Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and that's where the Renaissance Zone Authority is authorized essentially. And there's one word that states that the City Commission shall appoint the members, and so. And you know how that gets handled maybe is an open discussion. Does the appointment occur directly from the county, and then we also will need to hear from the schools and the parks, and I guess it should be a question of whether the ordinance is written explicitly to the groups that want to appoint, or whether it should be written more openly, and to provide the opportunity for those boards to come in and out.
Yeah, a solution. I mean, changing ordinance isn't terribly difficult. Like Mr. Guy said, it can be done. It's just as easy as changing the plan. But why change something that doesn't need to be? I guess is the argument I'd go there. The bylaws of this organization or this board clearly state who needs to be part of the board, how many need to be part of there, and that's going to have to get amended as well. And in there, you can clearly state in the bylaws that we will offer 3 seats to those boards. Should they not want a seat, the mayor continues to do what he does and fills it with someone willing. There's ways to do it out of ordinance that would seem to meet the requirements that were asked upon and are easily changed.
So, authority member Fink, yeah, in Chair Christensen, certainly that could be done. I mean, and in fact, that is what we're doing, or I should say, what the commission has obligated themselves to do by appointing a commissioner from the county. However, I believe the intent of including that as a part of the letter of intent was to provide the assurance to the county that the city would in fact do that, and then having it written into ordinance would give the authority to the other entity.
So would have it in the bylaws. I mean, it's a horse piece.
Do we need it in
And
both
the bylaws need to be
places?
changed anyway to be able to accommodate this to begin with, because ordinance doesn't talk about
Number of people.
number of members and who those members consist of, and
And that just, I mean. that
you're
would
doubling up work.
Broaden that conversation.
And the mayor can still appoint those things. According to the bylaws of this, we offer seats available to X, and does that. So, just trying to eliminate wasteful work.
Commissioner Zanker, does that make sense to you, that approach?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just that, just to echo what Daniel says, though, I mean, we agree to it today, 3 commissions later, it might be a whole different set of understanding as to how it works. So I think it's just better for us, whether it's an ordinance or a bylaws, doesn't really matter. If it's in the bylaws, then so be it, that we offer to the 3 political subs to partner with us, and then we go from there. And then I'll just reiterate that I've said before in these meetings, is that it's appreciated at the commission table when it comes from these boards up to the commission level, just because it's more clear, more concise, and some of the details have been hashed out at our meetings, so to speak. So.
Thank you. Nancy?
I kind of like the idea of changing it in both places, just because I think from the public standpoint, they probably aren't aware that there are bylaws for this organization. And so if they're looking, for the information or the authority, the bylaws are going to be hard for them to find. So I think maybe we need to change it in both places, but should we ask our attorney? I think she's here.
She would love to answer.
Is Janelle there?
No, it just doesn't matter.
Chair Christensen, Authority Board members, Board Member Guy, I would say that the ordinance needs to be changed because that is the operative thing, and I think the City Commission indicated they wanted to have that to be very forward-facing. So for sure, the ordinance. The bylaws can be changed, they can be changed without a hearing. Other than here, they're not as controlling as the ordinances. But yes, any of those can be changed at any time through our governmental process too.
Okay, thanks.
No, it's going to run on a parallel track, obviously, so. Okay. Other questions or counsel for Daniel and staff moving forward?
I had one, Mr.
Any?
So Daniel, have you started looking through the development plan and what needs to be changed at this point?
Chair Christensen, Authority Member Walt, we did some of that in fact, last month when we were looking at what the county was asking for. So we've done a cursory look through the development plan, and honestly, there may be other things. There's certain just timeliness things that should be updated in the development plan. They're referring to 2022 and the data collection and all of that. So there may be other things as we get into it we'll want to update just to keep it current. But really, the substantive changes would just be to the benefit, basing it from the base level, and then the constitution of the authority, which, as you mentioned, is listed as well in the development plan in a lot more detail than the ordinance has. So I would think both those would need to be changed. And we can propose some language to at a future meeting, whether it's in January or February, for you to look at and digest a little bit.
It'd be good. I mean, I would work through a Word doc and start suggesting changes myself if you just so cared.
Okay.
Get you some sort of kickstart on there.
Yeah, we'll take
or
any
vice
feedback.
versa. I mean, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I did get a chance to talk to you a little bit yesterday and just run some stuff by you about looking at how we structure an exemption and what are the options available. You had mentioned possibly you were reaching out to see if it was a procedural issue did you find anything that would prevent what I was talking about from happening? I'll go through what I was talking about, but
So no, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't.
so
No.
what my thought was in listening to the county and what they have to say, and the other boards that are available, I think a simple solution would stop doing an all or nothing approach to an exemption. We have the authority by the state statute and century code to be able to have this program at the city. It's the city's program, and it's the city's problem, and it's the city's responsibility to make a plan which these other entities need to approve. They don't need to approve of the program itself as a whole. They need to approve of how the city runs the program, right? If the county doesn't care for the program that we've developed, change the program so they can, which we're taking some steps to be able to do. The other option I think that we have is to say within the development plan and make it so that you cannot increase this number without express written permission from that taxing entity, that their participation of what we can exempt is 0 or 25% or 50, and the other taxable entities can be 50 or 100 or 70, like, they can continue to be the percentage base. If one taxable entity doesn't want to participate in the program, you can lower that allowable percentage for exemption to 0 and still have a program. It seems a reasonable way to go. I did get a chance to speak with Ricky at Department of Commerce. They make sure that the program that Daniel presents complies with Century Code. They don't care about how you do taxes. Century Code itself says you can do all or a portion of taxes as far as an exemption is concerned. The city does the assessment. They don't care about how you implement the tax. And Al at the county says, yeah, that's something we could do. Easy enough to do. So I think a different approach on how we do the exemption may be warranted if we're going to go through this exercise and get it right the first time. So,
Ironically, if that would have been considered years ago, I mean, that was rejected several times. And so I certainly would support any changes that would allow for that sort of thing to happen, because that's going to make everybody happy.
well, and I think we can look at making, I mean, you develop a plan so that there's 100% participation amongst all of the taxable entity, all the taxing entities. So if you can't develop a plan which they're happy with, 100%, you can remove them from it. I mean, the plan isn't to remove the county from participating in this. I don't think that's right. I think they should be completely vested in what we do. They should look at it and say, this makes sense for the community as a whole. They might not, and that's fine. But we should be able to continue with the program itself. And it would certainly make, we have a program, we don't have a program, less of an issue. Certainly encourage
other
and
comments?
not put halts on development.
Good observations. Anybody else care to weigh in? Nancy?
So to be clear, Joe, you're saying, are you talking about their ability to exempt themselves by project or for the entire program?
Yeah, I guess the easiest route to look at there would be in their letter of support to identify a percentage at which the city would be allowed to exempt as a programmatic, not on a case-by-case basis. We have some case-by-case basis or project-by-project percentages within our development plan, which if they get exempted 0, I think 20, 40, like I think it's on the 20% marks, depending on what their reinvestment is. So there's some of that already. It's just that we say it's 20% of everyone's tax, rather than saying the county doesn't want to participate. That's fine. We should make an argument why they should, and it shouldn't just be the county's never going to participate. Develop the plan so they do. And I think we're taking the right steps to do that. I don't know if we'll convince them, but I think at very least the base is, it seems like that's a go, no go. Like, look, we're not going to get any support if we don't stop exempting already existing tax base.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say that is the minimum that they will accept, from what I can tell. I would say that if what you just said was suggested, they'd be very open to that.
And it's up to the city, and we need to make the argument why they should be 100%. Maybe we can do that, maybe we can't. Any participation is better than none, but shutting down a program is certainly not because you can't be happy about 20% of the tax that gets collected is good for no one either. It's better to have the program than not. And there's ways to develop the plan to adjust for that and to take into account these boards may not see eye to eye.
Okay, I think we all agree that the program has merit, and that's why we're here. So, Joe, if I'm understanding correctly, I'm hearing you offered to help work with Daniel and staff on crafting some of those details.
Certainly, yeah.
Appreciate that. Other comments or questions or suggestions on the path forward? Daniel, I don't know, are you still at the podium?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, Chair.
I can see your hand there. So the county, between now and our next meeting is January 4th. We hopefully will have a recommendation from the county and possibly an appointment by the mayor of one of the county commissioners, correct?
That is correct, Chair.
So is it possible by January 4th to have at least an outline of the changes that we envision to the bylaws, the ordinance, and the development plan?
I can have that prepared, yes, with help from Authority Member Fink.
You're a brave young man, Daniel. Appreciate you. So, other guidance we would like to give staff? Anyone?
What does it say on there?
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's
If there's no further discussion on that particular agenda item, we will move on. Last call for any comments, suggestions? No? Okay.
Chair,
Thanks. Yes.
sorry if I just didn't, sorry, there was a typo on the agenda. It's January 11th. Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Authority Member
Gives you an
Zanker
extra-
got that.
Gives you an extra week.
Yeah, I was worried about that.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right, I gotta switch screens here real quick. We will move on to item 3, report from the downtowners. Is Kate with us? She's always with us in spirit or whatever.
I'm haunting you, yes.
Oh, boy.
Kate with the Downtowners, Chair, Authority members. I was going to bring up something else, but I kind of want to understand what you're saying a little bit, Joe. Are you saying that the county would still be part of the program? They'd give their okay, but you would kind of play around with the exemption portions? Because they've been very, at the state level, still very much with tax increment financing and Renaissance Zone would like to have a say in that. And when we had tried to take them out of some of those things, had some heartburn about that. Is that what you're saying?
I guess
Am I
I can't
understanding
speak
it?
to how those went, but what I would suggest that we put within our development plan and likely bylaws is that this board doesn't have the authority to change a determined percentage of exemption for the other tax collecting entities. The city, they can say, the city would be 100%, county would be 50%, and get approval from those boards to be up to that percentage of exemption on any given project. But what the county or what those taxable entities need to approve and what Commerce is gonna be needing is approval of our development plan, not the program as a whole.
I still don't think I understand, but maybe we can talk about it later.
I'll try to
You know what I'm
interpret it
saying,
for you,
Dustin?
Kate, I think we, at the legislative level, there have been bills to allow for the other political subs to opt out. Those have been defeated. I think what Joe is recommending is sort of a prorated opt-out that we. Yeah.
So I think I did understand you correctly.
But we
that
have the
you're in
authority
it,
to
but you can play around with it a little bit.
They need to approve of the development plan. If that development plan includes that we do not have the authority to exempt the county taxes, the county can still collect the taxes and approve of the plan.
So you're saying the county can collect the taxes from the original value?
No, full
or
assessment.
from the
We wouldn't have the authority
improved
to exempt.
value?
If it was zero, you would have the authority to exempt zero taxes, currently and in the future. An assessment is done on these projects every year anyway.
So instead of them.
We know what
opting
the
out,
taxable value is.
We agree what level to exempt on their behalf based on what they're willing to do to support the program.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's a negotiation rather than a straight, we're out of here type of situation.
Or holding us hostage.
Yeah.
They're in, but could be in for nothing, is essentially what you're saying, or everything.
Yeah. Or a portion, 50%.
Yeah, I guess I would really state, it's clear that we need to differentiate from being able to exempt all taxes and itemize what taxes we're exempting.
Okay. I mean, you have the
So-
ability to do a percentage of an exemption now, but it's usually across the board of the four.
And what I'm saying
And
is,
you wanna play
it's not good
with that.
enough. You need to say, how much of what taxes are we allowed to exempt? And in my opinion, parks included, talk to those taxing entities and determine what it is that we want to have in this development plan. What will you approve of? sounds like schools is gonna be 100%, right? They didn't push back at all on how we're gonna do it, and we're already 100. Parks, same thing. County, I don't know. Would they support half of the tax to be exempted, or none? I don't know. I'm assuming the city's 100.
If I may add one thing, the letter of support that the county issued on December 4th grants support to the renewal of the program on the terms of that is right now. So they have already supported the program at least for a year on the basis of that letter of intent, which didn't include this. So
Correct. And that's why there's not much point in changing anything here until we can get the counties, like, we got to talk with them. And what we thought back then may not, I mean, you sit on enough boards, right, Commissioner?
Unfortunately.
Do you want another one to sit on? No. How do you think the county commission feels?
Well, and that could be, and Authority Member Fink, you're exactly right? We never discussed that option. Just to kind of, hey. let's
Change
go-
what you're doing.
Change, yeah, we're gonna go that path. Here's what I will offer for advice is, let's get this thing done, right? Get our exemption, get our memorandum of understanding from the state, and then bring that board member on, and then we can have that point blank conversation, actually, instead of just have speculative conversation.
Correct.
So,
If
yeah,
what I'm talking about is a no-go anyway, why bother?
right. Well, and then that, whoever that board member is, can take that back to the county and say, hey, here's the deal. How do you want to go?
We know they committed to this, but this seems like a better route.
Right, yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
We have to discuss and vet all options.
Correct.
Right, yeah. So,
So,
So while we're still back on that topic,
how's that report?
I again go back to, how long do we have to wait? I mean, we're bringing the program back in the way that it left, and then we're going to make changes.
that was my question, Chair. So the way I understand it is, as soon as Daniel and the city gets their, stamp of approval from the Commerce Department, we can start putting in applications as the program exists. And then as it changes, the applications, meet those changes as they come along. That should be the process. I'm still lost. I'm just going to wander around that meeting that you guys are going to have about that, and then I'll just figure out what you're attempting to
I
say.
think that as far as, the program is going to exist and operate as it has. And the changes to the development plan, we've got a year.
Right.
And so we got a year to get it to the point where the county is in agreeance. There's no reason to fast track it to get it done by February, because that's just gonna make them more angry, probably. So,
And I agree with Vanessa on that. But I'm wondering why we are waiting. Okay, so we want to wait until the county appoints their board member before we make any decisions on any new applications?
no, changes to the,
Just changes to the development plan.
Just changes to the plan.
Well, sure,
Yeah,
I get that.
Once the memorandum of understanding comes back from the state to the city, it's.
We're in business.
It's
We can
business
start-
as usual for 365 days.
Right.
Whatever day that
That's-
is. And then we get, just like Authority Member Goverlo said, we get a year to work out the kinks of what we're gonna do
Absolutely.
back and forth. So I agree, fast tracking and moving forward. Now that Authority Member Fink brings up another idea, has to be vetted.
Sure.
So Danny, you just might have picked up a little bit more time rewriting some of those
Yes.
bylaws or
Yeah,
whatever, but.
yeah.
But
Thank
yeah,
you,
we
Commissioner.
can have that
I think we're all.
conversation, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep,
Okay.
hurry up, Kate.
Okay, well, I'm all right. I'm on the, just had to clear that up. I'll figure out what the heck's going on. I guess my only report then is we've already had people asking about applying. I've asked Daniel to send me the old application so they can at least start getting their ducks in a row of what they need to submit. I don't think the application's gonna change all that much, but we've got people ready to go. They're just waiting, so, which is great. Was that fast?
All right.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
I wanted you to hustle.
Very good.
To get this, we can get off the topic.
He's, I thought maybe you had a happy hour to get to or something. Okay.
have as much time as I'm gonna give you, but.
There's still time.
Wow, and then he looks at his watch. Holy crap. Well, we've got, from what I can figure out, potentially about 5 projects that are sitting out there right now of different, various size, some very large, some quite small.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, do you think this will help kind of render rejuvenate downtown a little bit and hopefully bring more like restaurants in and stuff. Because I just noticed since Renaissance Zone kind of has gone away, there's just been comments to me saying, what's happening to downtown? It's just not the same anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of that, I know we've talked about this a lot, part of that is interest rates. Interest rates right now are not great. Labor costs, even just finding, I don't know if Commissioner Zenker sees this, when I was talking with a developer yesterday about, even having a hard time finding construction companies to do the project and get them, quotes and stuff. So I think it's probably a combination of a lot of stuff. I don't know how that change in the rehab piece is going to affect some of those leasehold projects that you're talking about. If it's a new build, then I don't think it's going to affect it. But let's say someone wants to rehabilitate an existing building and put a restaurant in it, but now the exemption is less because we're not going down to the land value. We're actually, staying where it's at. That could affect it negatively, but I think overall it's going to be a huge positive because we've had about 5 projects just waiting. And with interest rates gone up, they're going to wait because they cannot make it work at 7.5%, 8%.
See, Kate, when you're talking to these ones that have approached you, have you warned them or given them the suggestion to run the numbers on you're going to have current taxes, you'll be exempted above that?
For the most part, the ones that I'm speaking with would be new construction, or infill.
Very little then there anyway.
So then they're not going to have that building value that they have to talk about. But, in your case of empty spaces that already exist, and depending on if it's a leasehold project or, purchase with improvements, blah, 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 it could affect it a little bit negatively. But again, budgeting has been waiting. That's a huge site, and that's going to be a big project. Got some smaller infill on empty lots right now, and it's just a land value tax. So, and I don't know. The budgeting could actually be worth negative amount of money because it's going to cost a lot to get rid of that building. But they're going to have to pay unless they demolish it first and then bring their application in,
Right.
they're going to have to pay the taxes on whatever's left of the
Just
building.
to play devil's advocate a little bit, if the program's being reinstated in the form which it's left, I guess, if we wanted to, we could continue with the exemption as we have in the past. That might not be a show of good faith, but technically we could.
You might want to consider, until the development plan is changed, to either do the current value baseline or what Joe is proposing. You might substitute in the interim a percentage basis on a per project kind of equivalency that base value with the property, just to make the county happy. It's an option.
Yep. Well, again, there's going to be a lot of discussion, so I appreciate that. So.
And I think that was the one thing we brought up with the rehab and keeping the building value is, for someone who's got a dilapidated building needs to come down anyway, it'd be smarter for them to demolish it first.
Correct.
And then it's worth just the land value and then come in with the application instead of coming with the application and then demolish and, because then they're going to have to pay that for a building that they're not going to keep, on the property. So, but I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. I don't think we're going to see that as often. We're going to see a lot more maybe new construction and leasehold projects.
What I would have to say to that is, we develop, well, I say this offhand, but we develop games, right? This is a game that the developer plays to try and get their project to cash flow. And if that's part of, I imagine we'll have safeguards in place to say, hey, that's not what we meant to do.
And that's why we brought it up. Just with a historic building, that was my only whatever. I don't want people tearing down historic buildings so they can just get down to the land value and get the better tax. The budget they were considering keeping a portion of the old building, and I would not call it historic. It was, like the cinder block piece. If it was me now, I would take the whole thing down and start from scratch because then I'm not paying that on the cinder block piece. So that might change their plan a little bit, but that's probably how the developers are going to look at it a little bit. And it depends on what the value of the building that's on site. So anyway, we've got people ready to boogie.
Thank you for the report from the downtowners.
Yeah.
Can consider yourself appointed as
Thank you. It was like my Christmas present early.
You can be the lay member of the committee that's going to work on the changes, so. All right. Gonna switch screens again. We're down to item 4 on the agenda. We do have a departing authority member, unfortunately. Not departing, he's just departing from the room, right? But Kurt, how long have you been on the Renaissance Zone Authorities? 2001? Sound right?
Whenever it started, that's all I can say. It's been a long time.
All right. I'm going to go to my email here real quick if I can find it. And I found it. If I can download it or open it. Let's see here. Daniel, you know how I deal with your windmail.dat attachments? I can't open it. So, do you have a paper copy there, Daniel?
I do. Let's see. Hey,
'Cause
maybe
I'm not
we'll
able
put it on the
to access
screen.
it.
How about that? We can put it on the
That'd
screen
be great.
and you should be able to read it from that. One moment.
This
Thank
sounds
you.
like a great thing for Kate to do.
The whole purpose is to embarrass. With this coming through, oops.
Jared, if you can
Oh,
see
it's-
it, it should be, I think it's on the screen now.
Now I'm just seeing my ugly face for some reason.
Hey, Danny, you want to read that?
Okay.
So somebody, they're gonna read it, because I'm not seeing it all, Daniel. I was before, and it was blurry. I'll try again. Okay, now I see the board, the group. And see if we can see the Elmo again.
It's really hard to give you some appreciation around here.
Yeah.
I can just pat you on the back and call good.
At 5, we do leave.
Jared,
We do.
Christian,
They
if you don't
only have
mind,
a certain amount of time.
I can read it on your behalf if you.
That'd be great.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is a resolution of appreciation. So whereas Kurt Walth has served on the original Renaissance Zone Authority Committee as a Bismarck business owner to help establish Bismarck's Renaissance Zone program and adopt the very first Renaissance Zone development plan in November 22nd of 2000. And whereas Mr. Walth has served as a member of the Bismarck Renaissance Zone Authority for over 20 years, first appointed on June 21st, 2001, and he served as chair between 2013 and 2018 of the Bismarck Renaissance Zone Authority. And whereas Mr. Walth has, over the course of his service on the Renaissance Zone Authority, had a role in approving 153 projects representing over $100 million in proposed capital investment, which has helped revitalize businesses, increase the tax base for political subdivisions, and create a vibrant downtown for Bismarck residents and visitors. And whereas Mr. Walth participated in the creation of the downtown design review process and has consistently advocated for high-quality design and construction in the Renaissance Zone area that will leave a lasting impression on the built environment of Bismarck. And whereas Mr. Walth has consistently been a valued member of the Renaissance Zone Authority, always attentive to the fairness in program application, tirelessly advocating for the benefits of the program, and considering the best interests of the general public in all decisions made. And whereas Mr. Walth will now leave the Renaissance Zone Authority for a well-deserved rest. Now therefore be it resolved by the Bismarck Renaissance Zone Authority that Kurt Walth be commended for his dedication and his support for revitalization of downtown Bismarck, and that the appreciation of the Renaissance Zone Authority be extended to him. And we do also have a certificate we'd like to present to Authority Member Walth. However, we'd like to have it signed first, and we can get it to you at a later date, but we'll make sure you get that. So.
Thank you, Daniel. Kurt, yes, well-deserved round of applause. Here. Kurt, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, first of all, thank you for whatever that was called, but it was great. I very much appreciate it. I've really enjoyed my time working with this authority, and I really feel strongly that we've done a great job for the community, for the taxpayer, and we got some challenges now. It'll just get better going forward, and that's kind of how things work. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you on behalf of the chair, on behalf of the authority and those who have served in the past and those who continue to serve, you've been a great mentor, and you're a great leader of the Renaissance Zone Authority. And I think the resolution that Daniel read kind of sums it up. You've left your mark on the built environment in Bismarck. So thank you very much. So with that, before we all start to tear up,
I have one more thing to say, Jim.
of course, sure.
I just kind of want to applaud Ben for standing up in the county and answering the questions very gracefully and very professionally. I think you did an exceptional job. Some of the questions were questionable, and to say the least. And I think you did an extraordinary job. So, job well done, sir.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Totally agree. I was at the meeting, and Ben's done it time and again, as has Daniel. It's not always easy standing up there taking shots and slings and arrows from sometimes uninformed inquisitors, but they've both done a great job. And as Kurt said, we've had some challenges, but we're here and we're moving forward, and it's going to get better. So thank you both, Ben and Daniel and staff. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Anything else, anybody? If not, and if there's no objection, we will stand adjourned until January 11th. Thanks, everyone.